special edition of Power Play. I'm Vashi Capellos, live in Montreal this evening, just ahead of the singular French language debate between party leaders of this federal election campaign. Tomorrow night, the English language debate happens, and some of the leaders have already arrived. Some of those party leaders have made their way here to Montreal. We're in front of the Radio Canada building where the debate will take place, put on by the Debate Commission. You see there the leader of the Federal Conservative Party, Pierre, alongside his wife, arriving just a few moments ago. Mr. Singh, Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP, has also arrived. We stand by waiting for the arrival of two additional candidates, the leader of the Liberal Party, Marc Carney, and the last candidate we understand who will arrive is the leader of the Bloc Québécois, Yves-François Blanchet. Now, I want to give you a picture of basically what's at stake, particularly in this province, in Quebec. Let me show you, if we could pull it up on screen, where Parliament sat at dissolution. There are 78 seats in this province, and this is how they were divided among the parties. As you know well, by this point, the polls have shifted, not just across the country, but at the provincial level as well. And so here are the seat projections, according to our pollster of record, Nanos Research, as of April the 13th. So if you just shift over a couple of months, you can see exactly where things are projected to be if an election were held at this very moment. An election is not happening at this very moment. We are still about a week and a half away from April 28th. There's Marc Carney arriving live on our watch at this very moment, making his way into the building. A number of supporters here. There's also, I should note, some protesters outside who are protesting on the issue of the Israel and Hamas war and the situation in Gaza. I did want to tell you that I mentioned there are four leaders who either are arriving or have arrived. That's less one, and that's because of an announcement that came out just this morning from the commission that is overseeing this debate. And that announcement was that they would no longer allow the Green Party to participate. One of the two co-leaders, Jonathan Pedneau, was supposed to be here on behalf of the Green Party, but they did not, according to the commission, meet one of the three criteria that had been set out, namely that they had to have 90% of their slate of candidates. That is something that Mr. Pedneau is protesting. Have a listen to his latest comments made just last hour on this.
This has been a difficult day for democracy, a sad day for democracy. We still haven't heard anything back from the Commission. It appears that the Commission caved in to pressure from other parties. That's a deplorable position by a Commission that is there and was created to ensure that in this particularly difficult election when our country is on the line, when our values are on the line, where we should be more democratic than what's happening south of the border, we have every voice included, and that it will not be the case today.
Mr. Pedneau will join our program and my colleague Michael Couture live in a few moments. But first, we want to get some top shelf analysis about what to expect tonight and really how high the stakes are for party leaders, not just in this country, but writ large in the federal election campaign. And I've got three wonderful people to help me do that. On the far end there, that's Tom Mulcair. You know him well, of course. He's a CTV political analyst as well as former leader of the federal NDP. Next to him, that's Dimitri Soudis. He's a former communications director for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And Dominic Anglade, sitting next to me, is the former leader of the Quebec Liberal Party. Hi, everybody.
Hey, hello.
It's wonderful to see you tonight. Tom, I'll start with you and just this exclusion of the Green Party, just on the news of the day. Was it the right call by the election commission? And what do you make of the timing, like the morning of?
It was the right call to correct an incredibly wrong call. They should never have been admitted. They were never supposed to be on the stage, and it was a mistake. They corrected it finally, but it's not fair that it was done at such a late moment. So there's a little bit on both sides. The commission really got this one wrong.
What does it shift as far as the dynamics on the stage? I think, parties that are not Marc Carney's party were sort of championing this idea. They want more time, I think, to go after Marc Carney in this debate. What does it change for you on stage, Dimitri?
So a couple of points. The leaders up until last night were preparing for 5 candidates, including the Green Party. And what I would expect today the Green Party would have done is to go after the Conservatives, to do it on behalf of kind of the more progressive, either the Liberals or the NDP. It also changes for who's going to host this debate. To find out this morning, he had a series of questions. There was the timing for everybody. So I would say the commission really fumbled this one. It was really over the issue of how many candidates. And a week ago, we knew that the NDP would not have the Green Party would not have the 309, which is the equivalent of 90% of candidates. So big fumble in the commission. I agree with Tom. The Greens should not have been there from the beginning.
Dominic, let me get your sense of how important this debate is for, in particular, and not to take away from lots of francophones across the country watching, but in Quebec, there is a fascinating dynamic at play right now. Over the last number of months, my goodness, as we saw in those seat projections, what a switch. How does that inform, I think, the stakes for tonight?
Well, you know, what we're seeing today is, what we're going to see with Mark Carney is whether he can really rally the Quebecers around what he has to do for the rest of Quebec. And what I would say is Quebecers are really looking for stability. Today there was a Standard & Poor released communication saying that they're going to lower the rating of Quebec. It has an impact on the economy. Quebecers are going to look at this and say, you know, we need stability, and it's probably a good thing for Mark Carney that this decision happens today. And for Yves-François Blanchet, it's going to be an opportunity for him to go toe-to-toe with Mark Carney. However, it's going to be an uphill battle.
What are the issues that you'll, in particular, Tom, be looking to punch through? And everyone watching will be familiar with 2021 when the issue of, for example, Bill 21 and the framing of it in the debate ended up dramatically changing the fortunes to the benefit of the Bloc Québécois.
Absolutely. They won about 10 seats they weren't expected to win.
What are those hotbed issues tonight, do you think?
Bill 21 is still a sleeper. Bill 96, front and center, the new law on the French language protection in Quebec. Mr. Carney's on the record as saying that he wants to challenge the ability to use the notwithstanding clause preemptively, and that gets a bit complicated for the average person. Blanchet will be able to frame that as being Carney against better protection for French, so he's going to have to be careful there. There are going to be a couple of complex issues coming up, one of which is the carbon tax, believe it or not. Quebec pays into a cap-and-trade system with California called the Western Climate Initiative. Quebecers are paying to do their part to lower Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. They've cancelled the carbon tax. They never collected it, but they're giving rebate checks to everybody else in Canada, and because there's no pot of money from the carbon tax, they're paying it out of general revenue, i.e., from Mr. Blanchet's point of view, and this is going to come up, they're paying checks to Canadians to buy votes, because they're coming out 4 days before the elections, with the money of all Canadians, including Quebecers. So believe me, that'll be on the agenda tonight.
And I see Mr. Blanchet actually just arriving here at the debate. He's the final of the four leaders, if we can bring up that live shot. There he is there, just getting off the bus, making his way to some of his supporters who have arrived. What are the stakes in particular, Dimitri, for Mr. Blanchet, right, who came into this election in a position of strength and at this point has seen a big reversal? So
less than 100 days ago, Pierre Poilievre was going to win the biggest majority in the history of the country and surpass Brian Mulroney's 1984 record. And Yves-François Blanchet was poised to be Her Majesty's, or His Majesty's now, leader of the official opposition, which reminds us of two basic rules. A week in politics is an eternity, and elections matter. Mr. Blanchet tonight, it's probably his second last opportunity, because next week on Sunday he's also going to be on Tout le monde en parle. It's his second last opportunity to save the furniture. I fundamentally believe that while this election is the most important election we've had since 1988, the free trade election, issues are not the main driver on who Canadians, Quebecers, Francophones are going to vote for. The main driver, and this is my fundamental belief, is there's the cognitive ballot question, and it's clearly framed itself to be who can face Donald Trump. But there's also the emotive ballot question, and that speaks to the anxiety the Canadians are feeling. And I believe the leader who will win tonight's debate, whatever that means, is the leader who ultimately will, you know, when you're on a plane and there's turbulence and you hear the pilot's voice and you get reassured. And I believe both Mr. Carney and Mr. Poilievre will try and embody the pilot on a plane that's going through turbulence. Mr. Blanchet is going to have a hard time. Why? Because the Bloc Québécois value proposition is we can defend Quebec's interests in Ottawa. His challenge, Canadians, Quebecers, are looking for who will defend Quebec's interests in Washington. And that's where he's marginalized himself.
Well, it's such a unique moment that we find ourselves in, right? Where it's not the sovereignty of this province that is preeminent in their the concerns of Quebecers, at least the impression I have. It's the sovereignty of our whole country. And when is the last time that was the case, Dominic?
Well, I can't remember the last time it was the case. But what I see right now is identity politics normally in Quebec has a big role to play. So when we talk about Bill 21, Bill 96, normally when you play that card, it's a winning strategy in Quebec. Not this time, especially that even when you see mistakes that Mark Carney has done comparing Polytechnique or confusing Polytechnique with Concordia, the two different tragedies. He confused the two, and you would think that Quebecers would be really, really upset about this. But the reality is they're willing to look past that because the issues are much bigger right now. And at Tout le monde en parle last Sunday, I think Carney performed really well, understanding better the Quebec culture, and Quebecers are looking and thinking, this time around, we might not look at the identity question. We might look at just simply the stability that we need to have.
And Tom, how unique is that? Because Dominic is right, the identity politics in this province have always been a political strategy.
For 50 years.
Yeah.
Going right back to the election of the Parti Québécois the first time and the arrival of the Charter of the French language, it's been front and center. And so it is a sea change in Quebec because everybody in Quebec has a bunch of their friends who are going to be on the sovereignist side. That's just demographics. But the friends that I have who are sovereignists are all saying the same thing this time around. It's like there's something bigger than that going on right now. And that's why the numbers right now for the Bloc are in free fall and for the Liberals are just rising considerably. It is really, I agree that Blanchet's going to be on Tout le monde en parle on Sunday, but the advance poll is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and there will be millions and millions of votes in the ballot box then. This is really the chance for Blanchet to try to distinguish himself. He's got to go after Carney, and he will, but he's got to do it respectfully and carefully because the old story, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. If he's too sharp in his attacks, people will turn against him. So he's got to try to dose that properly.
Let me ask the same question of you for Mr. Poilievre. What is the objective strategically in tonight's debate, and tomorrow will obviously be a separate conversation? Yeah.
I hate to sound repetitive, but both Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Carney will have to, and specifically to your question, Vashi, it's the pilot. It's white noise. Who can be the white noise that the country is looking for in a moment of anxiety? And again, Mr. Poilievre's challenge is that for 2 years, while he was leader of the official opposition, he was more abrupt. He was way more aggressive than, quite frankly, I think he needed to be. When you're at 20 or 25 points ahead in the polls, you don't need to be that aggressive. My only point on Mr. Poilievre, because he was an opposition MP, he was a cabinet minister under Mr. Harper. You remember him, we were there together, Vashi. He was the attack dog. He was very effective at that. But when you become leader of the official opposition, you then need to transform into being prime minister in waiting, which also means you need to hire somebody else to be your attack dog.
Last word to you.
Well, which also means that you have to present a team, and I think Mr. Poilievre hasn't. We don't know who's part of his team. We know Mark Carney. We know his team. We know that he has three finance ministers from the different provinces that are part of his team. We don't know that from Mr. Poilievre, and I think it would be beneficial for him to show who is going to be who's going to be in cabinet with him, and he hasn't demonstrated this so far.
Yeah, something to watch for certainly in the coming days if in fact that does materialize. All three of you will be back to talk about sort of behind the scenes, preparing people for debates, being in debates, what everyone might be talking about as the minutes tick down to when that debate gets underway. So we'll join you, or you'll join us, I should say, a little bit later on in the program. Thank you very much for the discussion right now. Tom Mulcair, Dimitri Soudis, and Dominic Anglade. We've got a live look at the debate stage, I believe, this moment. You can see there a little bit, at least, of the graphic representation, but soon enough, we will show you. There you go. There's the actual stage where the four candidates will face off against each other. That debate gets underway at 6 o'clock Eastern. I'm going to take a quick commercial break. We'll check in with our reporters who have been traveling alongside all of these campaigns, and then Bloc Québécois leader Gilles Duceppe will join me. We're back in a moment on this special edition of Power Play. Welcome back to this special edition of Power Play. I am live tonight in Montreal, just ahead of the French language leaders debate that gets underway at about 6 o'clock Eastern. Tomorrow night, the English debate will take place right here in Montreal, and we'll be with you for special coverage for that as well. Kind of a changing dynamic ahead of this debate, all unfolding very early this morning when the commission that is set up to oversee the implementation of the debate and execution of it made an announcement that they had decided that the Green Party no longer met the criteria to participate in the debate. So one of the two co-leaders of that party, Jonathan Pedneau, was no longer able to participate, a decision that he certainly and his other co-leader, Elizabeth May, protested throughout the day. My colleague, our senior political correspondent, Mike Lecouture, is standing by with Mr. Pedneau himself live. Mike, I'll throw it over to you.
No, right now. And Mr. Pedneau, you said just about half an hour ago you did speak with the commission because you've been trying to appeal this. What did they tell you?
Well, we heard from the commission. They sent us an email with another letter basically saying that they stand by their decision, which I think is unfortunate. It's a sad day for democracy in this country, especially with such an important election. I think all voices should be at the table.
At the same time, though, you had said earlier in the week that you had made a strategic decision to remove some of your own candidates in ridings that you thought that they didn't have a chance in, or that you were trying to make sure that you were blocking the Conservatives. So in that regards, the fact that you had removed candidates and then didn't meet one of the criteria, did you not see some of the responsibility on your part?
I think we have to be clear about what the criteria are. By 28 days before Election Day, the criteria was to have 90% of our candidates confirmed. That's well ahead of the deadline set by Elections Canada for confirmation. Confirmation only happens when you have 100 signatures, and throughout the country we face significant challenges because of the toxic nature of the political conversation we're having today, and a number of candidates decided to withdraw. We decided in a few ridings to withdraw a few candidates, but the point here is that we did meet this criteria. The commission invited us. They reaffirmed that invitation, but only after they got pushback from the Bloc Québécois and certain conservative commentators did they cave back. And that's unfortunate. Perhaps they were scared for their jobs. I don't know. But certainly this is depriving Canadians from an important progressive voice at a time when I think a lot of young Canadians would have loved to see a 35-year-old guy debate some of the same old politics that we see from these guys over there.
You're making quite an accusation of, as you said, commentators in the Bloc Québécois. What do you have to back that up?
Well, the National Post published an op-ed. There were several commentators asking, does the Green Party really deserve to have a seat at the table in this election? We had the Bloc Québécois also publishing a tweet, Monsieur Blanchet. Clearly, there was a bit of fear, I think, certainly from Monsieur Blanchet to have another Quebecer at the table tonight. He wants to shine and thinks that he's the only one speaking for Quebec. I think that's unfortunate. And when it comes to the Conservatives, well, what else is new? They want to build more pipelines, pollute more, and we have serious propositions that speak to the needs of Canadians, and they don't want them to be heard tonight.
So where you go from here, you won't have part of the debate stage tonight. How do you hope to make any kind of gains in Canada and in Quebec if you don't have this type of venue?
I think a lot of Canadians right now are disappointed in this decision. I think they've seen throughout this campaign how the Greens have been pushed aside, even though we bring some significant good ideas in terms of affordable housing, redistribution of wealth for the people who struggle the most in our society, putting an end to this insanity of building more pipelines in this country at this time, and really standing strong in face of the United States, cutting off this dependence that the Conservatives and Liberals alike have been pushing forth down the throat of Canadians for 40 years. So we'll keep campaigning. We're going to be unveiling our platform tomorrow, well ahead of any other party. I haven't seen Pierre Poilievre's platform or Mr. Carney's platform, and we're excited to do that. And we'll continue to campaign. I think Canadians are excited to hear about our ideas. It's unfortunate that the Leaders Debate Commission didn't offer us this opportunity tonight.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there, Mr. Pedneau. Thanks for taking the time for being with us. I appreciate it. Jonathan Pedneau, the co-leader of the Green Party. Vashi, send it back to you.
All right, thank you so much. That's our senior political correspondent, Mike LeCouture. I want to bring in a few other of my colleagues who are sitting next to me on this beautiful spring day, Abigail Beeman and Judy Trin. Both of you have been alongside a number of the party's campaigns, kind of traveling. Judy, you spent the bulk of your time with the Liberals so far. All eyes on Mark Carney tonight. Tell me a bit about your conversations on about the way in which the party views the stakes of this debate.
All right. Well, he is going to be the biggest target tonight in terms of all the party leaders on that stage. One thing that his strategists want to position him as is sort of like Mark Carney, the father, the dad that everyone gets along with. His staff believe that Quebecers do not really know Mark Carney, and they want today he visited a popular poutine restaurant called La Banquise. The idea is to show that he is embracing Quebec culture, even though he was born in the Northwest Territories, raised in Alberta. So that is sort of what they're trying to do. They're also trying to correct some early mistakes. Basically, you'll recall in the first week of that campaign, he mentioned that in terms of the École Polytechnique massacre, he said it was from Concordia. And then he also mispronounced a woman's name, a Liberal candidate, Nathalie Provenot. So Yves-François Blanchet is very clear in saying that anyone, he can name check Wayne Gretzky and he can name check, any numerous English stars, but doesn't mean that he fully understands English culture. And that's what he wants to position Mark Carney as. And I should also point out that Quebecers, or their top polling concern, is this issue of trade and who is best positioned to take on Donald Trump. So what I'm going to be looking for is whether or not Mark Carney's language skills in terms of his French fluency, what does he say? How strong are his arguments in positioning himself as a champion of that? Because as we know, of all four leaders, his French is the weakest.
Okay, and someone whose French is not so weak is Jagmeet Singh. You've been following the NDP. His party for the last week, I think it is. That's Abigail. Right. Tell me a bit about your conversations about how they view the potential significance of this debate for their campaign.
Well, as you know, the NDP have failed to make traction in Quebec for the last few elections. They're down to one MP. They have hope, shall we say, that they can pick up a few seats, but it's certainly an uphill battle. Jagmeet Singh is a veteran on this debate stage, right? He's been around for several elections. He knows what he's in for, and they are confident in him, confident in his French in particular. They're saying that it's never been as strong as it is now. The one question, or sort of the behind the scenes on the campaign trail, is that Mr. Singh is not feeling well, or wasn't feeling well. We almost had a press conference be canceled yesterday morning, so the team made the point of bringing him out at lunchtime so that reporters could see that he's okay and he's back at it. But we're talking about fever and sick to his stomach and all that type of stuff. So that sort of played into this as well. But we're told that he's in fighting form for tonight.
Okay, I'm not sure if. Okay, I'm gonna swing over to our other colleague, Rachel. I was just making sure that everything technically was working. But Rachel Aiello has also been at a number of conservative rallies and media events that they're holding, asking questions of the leader, Pierre Poilievre. She's with me live right now as well. Rachel, what are your conversations like with conservatives about how, as I put to our colleagues, they are viewing the stakes for themselves in this evening's debate?
Yeah, Vashi. So 2 points really came across in the conversations I was having with conservative sources today. One, they are saying that they are expecting Pierre Poilievre to present a version of himself that is serious but positive. So we'll be watching to see what exactly that looks like in his attempts to communicate in this debate about what his vision is for change. They were saying to me, Vashi, they want to make sure that Canadians are viewing Poilievre as the choice for change. And then the second point that they brought up in the conversations I was having today is really how they think that the Liberals and Mark Carney are trying to downplay his debate aptitude. So they are trying to kind of temper expectations, the Conservatives think. So they are trying to remind folks that Mark Carney is an experienced debater. He has a lot of experience in the public eye. So they are anticipating he will have a good performance tonight. So they're trying to remind folks that Mark Carney does have experience here.
Lots of expectation setting going all around. Thanks so much, Rachel. That's Rachel Aiello. My thanks to my colleagues Judy Trin, Abigail Beeman, and Mike LeCouture, of course, for their insights. I'm going to take a quick break. On the other end of that break, the former leader of the Bloc Québécois, Gilles Duceppe, is my guest to give us some insight on what's happened to the Bloc during this campaign and also what the stakes are for that party. We're back with Mr. Duceppe next.
Do you think Mr. Carney understands Quebec?
I think he does not give a damn. It is a problem for him to be forced to try to speak French, and he doesn't like it, and he does not really understand. He doesn't like us so much. He will never say that he does not like us, but I don't feel the love. I don't feel interest for Quebec. I don't feel interest for the difference. I don't feel interest for the language. I don't feel interest for the culture. I don't feel interest for anything which is Quebec.
Welcome back to a special edition of Power Play here from Montreal. To get some more perspective on the stakes of this evening's debate, and in particular the dynamics at play in this province, I'm joined by Gilles Duceppe, the former leader of the Bloc Québécois. Mr. Duceppe, pleasure to see you in person.
It's a pleasure for me also.
I appreciate you making the time. If I remember correctly, the last time a political party leader was able to get a debate moved because of a hockey game, it was in 2011, and it was you.
Yes.
Yes. And do you think it was the correct decision?
I think that was a correct decision. They should have made the same thing this year. Instead of just moving the hours, they should have moved the day. Or the hockey league should have maybe postponed the game from 7 to 8. But that was a decision made in U.S. Maybe by Trump, we never know.
Maybe at this stage, right? Do you have a sense of how interested Quebecers are in this federal election?
Well, yes, I think they're a lot interested. And last debate, there were 4 million people listened to the debate. So it's important. Debates are always important. It could change the numbers for each party. And when you look at the last polls, last 2-3 days, but the Bloc and the Liberals around Montreal, among the French people, are head to nose, and outside Montreal, the Bloc has a little advantage. So it could make Carney monitor instead of having a majority. So, but the debate could play a lot, because Carney didn't answer a lot of questions. Like he said, he knows business. I'm pretty sure he knows business. But Brookfield last year made $541 million of profit, and they didn't pay a penny for income. So you have to know business to do so. and the same thing, he said he was the spokesman for the United Nations for Climate. And the same year, he deforested 9,000 hectares of forest in the Amazon forest. So it's at least a contradiction.
You point to, I think, what will be something to watch for tonight, which is now that we are down one political party leader, the others will have their sights on Mr. Carney as, you know, the front runner of sorts, but also the person who is kind of the least tested in the public.
Yes.
And you bring up some of those issues. For Mr. Blanchet, how important will it be for him to go toe-to-toe with Mr. Carney? Like, what should be his objectives going into this?
The objective will be to ask Carney what will we do, what he'll do with Quebec priorities. I'm thinking of the softwood lumber, the supply management policy, the culture, the aluminum. Every time they were in majority negotiating with Mexico and the United States, those priorities for Quebec were put aside. When they're in minorities, then it's different. So it could be important. And also questioning why Mr. Carney is against Bill 96 concerning the French language, and
he
Bill
says
21...
the federal government would intervene under his
That's
leadership.
it. And Bill 21 concerning secularism. So that'd be an important question, but it has to be asked not aggressively, but asking him quietly a very clear question. If he is not answering, ask him a second time, a third time. If he doesn't want, then you give the answer for him.
Do you think that people who will be watching tonight, like especially in Quebec, will be watching for those moments, because often in Quebec, and you would know better than me, but sometimes when there's momentum behind something, it can overtake a lot of other things. Do you think that the Liberals are at that point, or they could still suffer some setbacks based on what happens tonight?
Yes, because if you look at the debate in 2021, the Bloc was, the difference between the Liberals and the Bloc were almost the same than the last poll of Léger. And the debate changed a lot.
It was a complete game changer, yeah.
That's it. So it could happen. But you have to be prepared and never be aggressive. You have to be, I think, polite, have a clear debate, like it was in the past in the House, not in recent years between the Liberals and the Tories, not at all. So I think, and Blanchet is a good debater, and Carney will have to answer. Something else that I know the business, I know the business, I know the business, I know the business, but what are you doing with what you know?
You referenced the prospect of, let's say they are able to form government, majority versus minority. Yeah. In a minority situation, when you look at where the NDP, for example, at this point in time, you never know, but in the polls, their numbers have collapsed significantly. Yes. It creates a different possible scenario in the House of Commons where a minority government might have to rely on the Bloc.
But it happened in the
and
past.
And you know it well, yes.
It happened with Paul Martin. It happened with Stephen Harper. And even if Martin and Harper, we have very different point of view, we were able to negotiate. I remember that the fiscal imbalance was in the speech of the throne, because we told Paul Martin, you won't have our support for that speech, so there'll be another election at last minute. It was done at the very last minute. Same thing with Harper. We negotiated. I asked 1 week before the budget, $3.9 billion. So I couldn't change my mind in the last minute. It was clear. It was published. And we obtained 3.3 because we were negotiating. And I'm used to negotiate. I was a negotiator before, never had a strike. But I never tried to sell the union card to the employer at the end of the negotiation. Different interests, but interests are cross each other.
There's cross interests.
Yes, you have to find that point.
Do you think that exists now for Canadians that are watching and would assume that that wasn't possible for the Bloc and the Liberals, let's say, to find overlap, that it would lead to the demise of the Liberals? Do you think that's not a foregone conclusion?
But this is not what happened with Paul Martin.
Correct, yes.
And neither with same thing with Stephen Harper. So the line was always, if it's good for Quebec, we're supporting it. If not, we're not supporting it. And a lot of time, it's not only good. What's good for Quebec is also good for Canada.
Yeah.
So.
Just final question for you, because you participated in 17.
Yes, I'm in the Guinness, I think.
In the Guinness Book of World Records. A piece of advice for the candidates tonight, if you had one, what would it be?
Relax the day of the debate. I remember in 2004, I played 18 rounds of golf.
Really?
Because if you don't know your files,
that
day, I mean, it's too late. So you have to relax. Go to the swimming pool. Go to the gymnasium. Go playing golf.
Go for a walk in the snow.
Trump,
maybe
not
today. Not with Trump, and not today with this
Not
weather.
today, certainly not.
All right, Mr. Duceppe, a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
That's the former leader of the Bloc Québécois, Gilles Duceppe. I can confirm playing golf in this weather in Montreal tonight or today would be a wild decision. Let me show you a little bit of what it has looked like over the last hour or so as different leaders arrive here at the debate. We are just a number of minutes away. Here is Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre alongside his wife making his way into the building where this debate will take place. Jagmeet Singh also arriving not that much later. Actually, I think he arrived just after Mr. Poilievre, making his way in. We heard that he was a little bit ill for the past few days. Here's Liberal leader Mark Carney coming into the building, some supporters of his alongside other party supporters, certainly there to greet all the leaders. And finally, the last leader to arrive was Yves-François Blanchet, the leader of the Bloc Québécois. The stakes are particularly high for his party in tonight's debate because, of course, they only have representation in Quebec. There's a look at the set. We'll take a closer look after a short break. Lots more analysis of what might happen tonight is ahead. Stay right there for the special edition of Power Play in Montreal. You're looking live inside where in just a few minutes, in fact, the French language debate between party leaders will take place. That's the only time they're going to face off in French during this entire federal election campaign. And then tomorrow night, they'll be back in the exact same spot and they will be debating in English. I'm Vassy Kapelos in Montreal. We are back with our panel of experts on not just politics largely, but also debates more specifically. Dominic Anglade, Dimitri Soudis, and Tom Mulcair are here. I wanted to use this opportunity, in addition to what we talked about for issues, what's happening, the dynamics at play, to talk about your own experience in debates and how that might inform our analysis tonight. So, Dominic, do you enjoy debating? Did you like it? And did you think there was something politically to be gained, or was it just about not losing?
There was definitely something to be gained. And I actually enjoy debating, but it requires preparation. It requires a lot of hours of understanding your files. But beyond that, it's not only the content, it's how you're going to say it, how you're going to smile, the way the body language that you're going to have. And it's going to be really important for the people today when you think about Poilievre, when you think about Mr. Carney, like how they're going to be able to use their body language to express their opinions. So I really had an excellent time doing this.
What about the preparation, just jumping off that point, because Dimitri, you helped prepare Mr. Harper for his debates. I just interviewed Mr. Duceppe, who said you should go golfing on the day of the debate. You should relax, and because if you don't know your file by then, I was I was shocked, but that was his approach. What was your approach to kind of getting things ready for a night like tonight?
So there is intense preparation that starts months before the actual debate, because you have to prepare the binders, the famous binders for debate. Now, there's a privilege to preparing a leader for a debate because it's a very intimate group of advisors that get to participate in that. And then there's those that do role playing. So you can anticipate that today, on the Conservative camp, for example, somebody played Mark Carney, somebody played Yves-François Blanchet. I pity the person who had to play the Green leader because...
No longer needed.
No longer needed. You're fired. I can tell you that debates, I'll give you two examples. In 2004, Stephen Harper won the debate but lost the election. In 2000, Joe Clark won the debate but lost the election. So a lot of time goes into debate prep. I find that seldom, and there's two examples where debates actually made a difference. 1984, Brian Mulroney, the debate took place in July. The election was in September. And 2015, the first debate occurred a few days after the election campaign started, and it was a long campaign. I would say, and I don't want to disappoint anybody here who has been working for months, is that at this very late stage in the game, unless there is a true knockout punch, like you had a choice, sir, as did Brian Mulroney in 1984, I believe the impact will be minimal on changing minds of where people are going to go on election day.
Tom, I asked you this question earlier when we were on radio, and I loved your answer because I was always very curious about, so much of what ends up playing out of these debates is the exchanges, so-called knockout blows or something of that sort. How much effort did you put into, when you prepared for your debates like the one we're going to see tonight, into like the style versus the substance of what you have to present?
You have good people around you advising you on style. There's an old trick of turning off the sound on a debate and just watching who seems to be in control in their body language. The other thing, and to a point that's been made a couple of times by my colleagues in answer to your questions, there are a select group of advisors who always want to be around. And I'm not quite of the go play golf school of thought, but I think that in the last couple of hours before the actual debate, clear the room. Just the one or two people with whom they are the most comfortable, and stop preparing. It's too late. You're not going to be preparing anything at this late stage. They know their stuff, by the way. They all know their stuff. So I think that Poilievre is going to be working hard to find that fine line between the very tough Pierre Poilievre, who's been grilling people in the House, and the Poilievre who can try to convince people that he can get this done. Carney, he's in his second language. He's done well in Tout le monde en parle, and other things he's done in French. Some people have been saying French not so good. His French is fine, but it's not as good as some of the other people on the stage. So he's got to make sure that he's handling that as well. Mr. Singh has had a tough campaign. Not that he hasn't had a good campaign. He himself has done well. His presence, his announcements have all been fine, but he's been totally squeezed out, as is the Bloc being squeezed out right now, because this is forming into a two-way race. So what people are going to have their eyeballs on tonight, frankly, is Carney versus Poilievre. Blanchet's going to have to try to find some room in there. The people around him are going to give him tough lines, and how he delivers them will determine a lot. If he's too sharp in his replique, he's going to lose even more votes, and it's already a very tough time for him.
And we're looking live, actually, right now at all those four leaders. The first time we've ever seen these four individuals all together making their way onto the debate stage right now. The actual debate gets underway at 6 o'clock Eastern. I should let you know that you can watch it across all of our online platforms, including CTV on YouTube and ctvnews.ca. There's only four people there, as we were discussing throughout the hour. The Green Party candidate was told he no longer could participate because he didn't meet the full criteria that the commission set out. I believe they'll do a bit of a photo op. At this point, you can see their positioning on the stage. And then the host will at some point be there as well. I think I saw him in the background. That's Apr.16, who will be the moderator, I should say, of tonight's debate. As we take a look at this picture, I think it is sort of remarkable, Dimitri, that we haven't seen this first. Because we've seen three of those people go up against each other, but the fourth, Mr. Carney, has never been in this forum or in the House against the three individuals as well, which is a fairly unique thing in the past number of years.
It is, and I can tell you, once these debates are over, I remember it, 2004, 2006, 2008, 2011, there's a small holding room for each leader, and their top advisors, 2, 3, or 4 of them are there. Every leader goes back to that holding room. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom or Dominique. You'll hear clapping in every single one of those rooms because their team ultimately wants to say, you did great. Now we got to move on to the next stage. You can't deflate them.
Which is the scrums. Because there's a second thing that everybody has to prepare for. And there's a team already thinking about what the lines are going to be at the scrums, because that is scripted as well. There's very little of that that's spontaneous.
Yeah, unfortunately for people like me, but that is the reality of things. Dominic, as you take a look at all of this, in your view, tonight, who has the most to lose?
Well, honestly, I think at this point, Yves-François Blanchet in Quebec has a lot to lose because if he's not able to confront Mark Carney on the economy and making Quebecers realize that if they don't vote for him, they're not going to be, Mark Carney is not going to be able to support major Quebec economy elements like softwood lumber, like steel, some specific sectors that Mark Carney is not going to be able to defend. I think it's going to be problematic for him to make any points. Obviously, Pierre Poilievre, because people in Quebec is still not very much liked. So he needs to present himself the same way he did at Tout le monde en parle a few days ago. It was very friendly, and I think he needs to do the same thing. But again, it's going to be an uphill battle for him.
Dimitri, you want to jump in?
Simply put, the one who has the most to lose is the one who has the most. And that is Mark Carney. He's leading the polls in Quebec. He's leading the polls in English Canada. I will bring one small variation to this, is Mr. Poilievre right now is actually more popular in Quebec than Yves-François Blanchet, the Bloc leader. Voter intentions, pure percentage. That may not translate into more seats for the Conservatives, who sit at around 10, but you may end up seeing the Bloc dropping down to 15 or 10 seats if this momentum continues on the Liberal side.
Tom, I'll give you the last word because we spent a long time talking about what Mr. Blanchet has to do, what Mr. Poilievre has to do, and their tone and tenor. There have been a few moments during this campaign where the tone of Mr. Carney has also been scrutinized, right? He doesn't love the needling too much by even just reporters forget about his opposition here.
I know a little bit about Irish tempers, and I can see that in Mr. Carney. Yeah, he's got to be careful because there can be constant needling from the other candidates tonight, and they could be on him, and they will be. I mean, he's obviously the target tonight. So he's got to keep his cool, and he's got to stick to his game plan. He's very disciplined. I mean, we've learned that about him, and he's plenty smart. Nobody needs to have that proven to them. But he's going to have to play the game. He's going to have to get through this thing unscathed. It is incredibly important. I disagree slightly with Dimitri on one thing. I think the person with the most to lose is, in fact, Mr. Blanchet, because even his riding is in play. In fact, I think he's going to lose his riding based on everything that I've been able to see. And I agree with Dimitri on one thing. I think that the Conservatives, in terms of votes, could very well wind up ahead of the Bloc in this election, which would be unbelievable, but I think that could actually happen.
I have actually 20 seconds. Do you want to say something?
And let's remember that Mark Carney, it's going to be its first debate, and its first debate in French. So that's going to be a huge challenge for him.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be fascinating.
He needs to be calm during this debate, very calm.
All right, salient advice. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate the discussion and your insights this evening. Dominic Anglade, Dimitri Soudas, and Tom Mulcair. We're back with more coverage after a short commercial break. Welcome back. Let me take you inside the room where just minutes from now, all four political party leaders will face off against each other. This is the first time they will do so. It is the French language debate, the singular one that will take place during this federal election campaign, which, by the way, winds down over the next week and a half. The second debate will take place tomorrow night in English. And that debate will be the last thing that happens before advance voting opens on Friday, otherwise known as Good Friday. Families will all come together, of course, over the long weekend. Even if you're not celebrating the holiday in some capacity, you'll have a lot more time to talk about the choices ahead of you. And like I said, there'll be 4 days of advance voting, in fact, before the big day, Election Day on April 28th. This debate takes place entirely in French over the next 2 hours. And then, like I said, tomorrow night, the English debate will take place. And I do want to tell you about some special coverage that we have planned for that. We will be here at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 hours in advance of the debate for pregame analysis. I'll have our top strategists with us, Kathleen Monk, Corey Tenike, and Scott Reed. And we will take you all the way through to that debate at 7 o'clock Eastern. You can watch that debate live across our network from 7 to 9 tomorrow night. And then we'll also be carrying all the scrums, as we call them. So the political party leaders will be questioned by reporters, and we'll carry all of that live, and then we'll analyze what you hear. The stakes of this debate are certainly very, very significant when you look at where public opinion polling has tracked throughout this campaign and just how close and tightly fought a race this is, in particular between the Conservatives and the Liberals, who, depending on the day, are anywhere between 2 and 6 points apart, and depending on the pollster as well. You can see, if we can show a live shot right now, there are more parts of this debate getting underway.
The word "have" is one of the most beautiful words in the dictionary.
Okay, I don't know what that is. Maybe that's the start of the debate. In any event, that is essentially the picture as we see it right now. That debate will unfold throughout the evening, entirely in French, focused largely on issues that affect Quebecers. And then tomorrow night, the English debate will take place as well. I'm going to leave our program there. I'm Vashi Capellas. That's Power Play. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow evening.